Hey boaters, Keith McGowan here. I am the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. We're continuing on with our replacement outboard motor for Henry. And don't forget my used outboard motor buying guides for sale on Amazon for $20 for a limited time. If you send me an email at keith@outboarddad with proof of purchase, keith@outboarddad.com, I'm offering a free half-hour session over the phone, a $250 value, to help you with a motor or a boat that you're looking to purchase. So today we're going to start with our throttle and shifter cables. And we're going to take the side covers off because it just makes it easier. You can do it, you can finagle the little clips on and off and everything. I just bite the bullet and go ahead and take it off. So let's take the side cover off first, and then we'll get these throttle and shifter cables hooked up. So I already took the bolts out. So what I did was I went ahead and put the two cables up on the boat here so I could see them, and then I went to my shifter, my throttle control, and I went and shifted into forward and then watch the throttle go to make sure I'm hooking up the right cable. I have hooked up the wrong cable from time to time. It's not pretty, doesn't run very well like that. So I know that this one I put aside is my shifter cable, which is going to go down here. Also, what we did was we took the air box off and we disconnected the sensor for the oil pressure switch, because he's not going to use the VRO, so we're going to go ahead and leave that disconnected and capped off. The pump is fine. You don't need to put a regular pump in. The pump works great. Let me know your opinions about saving that VRO as just a fuel pump and just capping off the line and be done with it, and he'll mix it in the tank. So let's get this shifter cable hooked up. We do have a 3/8 bolt here. It holds the cables. Nice little mount that holds the ends. And these also, if you look, they're threaded, so you have some adjustment here. Looks like this one's adjusted all the way out. We'll play with it a little bit, but really until you get out on the water, sometimes you have to make some adjustments. We can play with it a little bit here. It's also cold out. It has to work in, so may need some other adjustments. We'll get it pretty close. So Evinrude has these really cool clips that circle and go around. You can just, even with my gloves on, you can take your finger and pop the side off. There is a washer on it. I'm a big proponent of leaving the washers and everything. It was there for a reason, makes it shift smoothly. So let's go ahead and get this one in. I want to make sure I'm in neutral in my shifter. I want to make sure I'm in neutral in my outdrive. I'm spinning my prop so I know I'm in neutral. And then we're going to make our adjustment right there in the middle. And then once we run the motor, we probably won't even put the cowlings back on until we do a test to make sure we're set up properly. Then put our washer back on. Get our nice little Evinrude clip in there. As you can see, it's not fitting in there, right? I would have to shift it in order to get it in there. So we're going to go ahead and adjust it. Looks like someone adjusted it out, possibly for the other motor. Not sure why, or maybe it wasn't clamped right. I didn't really look at it. I just pulled it out. So we're going to go ahead and crank this back. It's probably going to end up exactly where it was before. We can see by the markings. So I checked and was sure that my shifter up at the throttle shifter is in neutral. I made sure I'm in neutral here, and it lines right up inside there. We're still in neutral. It's not clicking or anything when I spin the prop. So now we'll go ahead and get our throttle connected. Actually, we had that down here. Nope, that's right. That's where it goes. And making sure we're in neutral. Did I have it down here when I was doing it? No, here's where we need to be. So now we'll go ahead and hook up our connection for our throttle. Here's our washer here. We'll go ahead and slide that over. We'll go ahead and put the clip on. Whoop, with the washer. See, even with the cover off, sometimes it's a little tricky. Get our clip in here. Pops right on. And this one seems to line up pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and work this back and forth. That's full throttle, and that's neutral. So that one seems to be in good shape. So now we can go ahead and put our holder back on. Tighten that up. All right, throttle and shifter should be good. I'm going to go up and shift back and forth so we can see the action. I want to see where we're at with wide open throttle. I ordered a bunch of these followers just to make sure, and I can see that it's okay. If you look closely at this follower, you can see how it's got a piece of clear almost around the outside of a centerpiece, and sometimes that cracks off and then it doesn't give you the right throttle position. So that looks good. We are definitely in gear. I can check with my prop, and looks like we're set up here, and we can go ahead to the other side and look at our wiring, our 12-volt wiring from our battery connections, our fuel connections, and our power tilt and trim. Then we can hook up our battery and do a test to make sure everything's ready to go. Evinrude makes a nice clip for this to keep it all nice and neat. Looks like this motor got a little hot because I do see here a little bit of darkness, so it looks like it got hot at one point or another. We're gonna go ahead and just take this off just to get it out of our way so we can see what we're doing, number one. Number two, just a little fumbling around to get everything connected. So now we wanna make sure we're gonna run our wires through here and get everything connected that we need. Pretty basic here what we have. We have our ignition wiring that connects, and we have our positive and negative cables here that we have. And then we have our tilt and trim plug that gets plugged in. There is one other wire that went to a sensor on the head, a temperature sensor for a gauge. Not sure if that even works or not. We can actually take that sensor off the old motor and put it on this one if Henry so chooses. He can certainly do that if he wants to, or we can do it for him. It's not a bad idea to have something other than the alarm keeping an eye on your temperature. So we're going to fish these wires through here, clean them up a little bit, they get all greasy from our famous two-stroke oil, and then we'll hook up the battery and do some tests. Then we're going to have to run out and get that steering cable so we can finalize this. As I'm fishing these wires through, realizing the big red plug's not going to make it through that small hole, there is another 3/8 bolt here holding this piece on, so we can get that just shoved out of the way a little bit so we can get it that wire through. If you notice, I'm putting everything over there because I have a rag on top of the boat. I don't want to put stuff on the nice white boat and get grease all over it and give Henry something more to clean up. So now that this is out of the way, I could actually cut this line. I think I'm going to do that for him. I'll cut it a little closer inside and plug it off so it's not sticking out. Sometimes it could get in the way. So now we can go ahead and connect our ignition wiring. I just want to push this in really tight, make sure it makes a good connection. And that'll tuck up nice in here when we get our cover back on. We have our wire here for our power tilt and trim, so that'll snake down and come up here. Let's get our cables in for our battery. So nothing crazy. We have our positive here on our other side of our starter solenoid and our ground right here. So looks like it might be easier to hook up my positive wire first. Probably going to unplug this because it's in the way now. Get a little 1/2-inch wrench and we'll get this connected. So there is a star washer that we use for our positive cable. These things shake, rattle, and roll. You want to make sure that star lock washer is on there. You don't want that to fall off or start dancing around. Your motor will start spitting and sputting. You'll have problems. Actually, this motor doesn't need 12 volts to run, but you don't want to start arcing inside here, right, and causing a fire or something like that. So we got our ground hooked up. We got our ignition cables hooked up. The Evinrude gives you a nice little clip to hold this on. Before I start neatening all this up, I'm going to snake my thermostat wire, for a lack of a better term. It goes to the sensor for the gauge that gives you the temperature of the engine. We'll snake that in here, but then I want to hook up the battery and do a test, make sure my power tilt trim works, turn the key, make sure all that's functioning before we neaten all this up. Battery's all hooked up. Now what I noticed, and I have to let Henry know, he's got a Deca battery in there. I'm a big fan of Deca batteries. You guys tell me what you think. What is the best battery? What battery have you used that's worked well? I've had good success with the Deca batteries. I've bought them under the Duracell name at Batteries Plus Bulbs over the years. Of course, the prices have doubled. Wow, it's ridiculous how much a battery is. So he's got a 550 cranking amp battery here. This needs 1,000 cranking amps. That's what you need for most of your V6 outboard motors. V4, you might be able to get away with it, but why not? Why not just go with 1,000 cranking amps? Again, let me know your opinion out there in the comments. But I got my battery hooked up. Let's see if our power tilt and trim switch works here. So we're good here. We're gonna go up to the console and let's try the ignition and the power tilt and trim up there. Okay, so this is ready to go. All the electrical seems to be in good shape. We're going to go ahead and just neaten up these wires now, put this stuff back together. There is another rubber piece that goes over the throttle and shifter cables. This goes over the throttle and shifter cables, and the screw goes right through it that holds the cover on. So we're going to get all this neatened up, get the cover on, and then we're going to look at his prop because he wants to put that stainless steel prop on, and we'll run out and get that steering cable, and this will be ready to go for Henry.